The first thing I remember is the smell stale wood, mildew, and something metallic I couldn't name. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on a dusty attic floor with no idea how I'd got in there or who I even was. I sat up too fast and my head roared with pain. Cobwebs clung to my hair. The single bulb overhead flickered, casting long, warped shadows across the slanted ceiling beams. My heartbeat echoed so loud in the tight space it felt like the whole attic was breathing with me. I stumbled to my feet. The door was at the far end, half buried behind old trunks and moldy boxes. I tried the knob, it rattled USELESSLY. Locked. I kicked it once, then twice, but the only thing that answered was the dry creak of the floorboards overhead. That's when I heard it. A soft scrape like something crawling above the ceiling, dragging itself across the beams. I froze, ears straining. Silence. Then another shift. A patter. Not mice. Heavier. Slower. Almost careful. I looked around for anything to break the door hammer. A crowbar. All I found were boxes filled with yellowed clothes and broken picture frames. Their glass cracked like old ice. One box held nothing but small, hand-carved toys, figures with wide, round eyes and no mouths. My stomach turned when I realized each one looked just a little bit like me. I pressed my ear to the door. No footsteps outside, no voices. Just the steady tick of a clock somewhere deeper in the house. I called out my own voice, sounding strange, like it didn't belong to me. No answer. Hours passed, I think. The bulb flickered and dimmed until the shadows pulled in corners I couldn't see into. Sometimes, I'd hear that scrape again, then silence so thick it made my ears ring. At some point, I dozed off. I woke to the sound of something brushing the floor right next to my head. I didn't move, just cracked, and I opened. The bulb swung slightly overhead, as if something had pushed it. Dust drifted down like ash. I could see faint scratches near the base of the wall, tiny claw marks leading from a hole the size of my fist. I crawled closer. The hole smelled worse than the room with earth, rot. I leaned in. Squinting into the black, a voice hissed my name. I jerked back so hard I slammed into a trunk. Behind me. My name I didn't even remember until that second echoed in my ears, like it had been waiting for me to hear it again. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to slow the panic tearing through me. The thing above me moved again, heavier now. Footsteps, maybe. Then 3 slow thumps, right above where I sat shivering. Almost like a knock. I dragged the trunk under the attic door and climbed on top. I pounded my fists against the wood until my knuckles split. I screamed until my throat was raw. No reply, just the bulb swinging, the hush pressing in closer. The soft drag of something just out of sight. I don't know how long I've been up here now. Days. Hours. The bulb is dying. Every time it dims, I see something different in the corners, shapes that watch me without moving, waiting for the light to go out completely. Sometimes I think I hear whispers through the cracks in the floor above, scratching voices telling me things I almost understand. Telling me why I'm here. Why I can't remember who I was before. I keep scratching at the door. I keep hoping someone will hear. But deep down, I think whoever put me here knows I won't leave. They want me to remember first. They want me to see what's waiting in the dark above the ceiling. The bulb flickers again, longer this time. Something breathes my name behind the wall. I don't know what I did, but I think I'm about to find out. Every time I shower, I feel a hand brush my back and I know I'm alone, but something always waits behind the curtain. Even when I fling it open, dripping and breathless, there's never anything there, but the feeling lingers like steam on skin. It started 2 months ago, not long after I moved into my new apartment. Small place, 3rd floor of an old walk-up. It was nothing special, creaky floors, bad insulation, that constant smell of something faintly sweet and sour from the hallway, but it was cheap and mine. The bathroom was the first thing I noticed was off, not visually, it looked normal enough. Standard tub, pale blue tile, a single frosted window that never opened more than an inch. But it always felt colder than the rest of the apartment, even when the heater was on full blast. The first time it happened, I was washing my hair. Eyes closed, the hiss of water drowning out the outside world. I felt something touch me. Light. Almost furious. The tips of fingers brushing the small of my back. I jumped, flung the curtain open. Nothing. Just steam and the mirror beginning to fog. I laughed it off. Must have been the draft, or a muscle twitch, or even just my imagination. I didn't like being scared of my own shower, so I chose to forget it. But it happened again. And again. Always the same warm water, closed eyes, the sensation of skin against mine. Once, I could have sworn I heard breathing, slow and wet, just behind the curtain. I tried everything, left the curtain open, played loud music, even started showering with the lights on full blast. But every time I closed my eyes, even just to rinse my face, I'd feel it. The softest pressure, fingertips, not malicious, but present, intrusive, and it got bolder. One night, I opened my eyes and saw the curtain move. Not sway, move. As if something had pressed a hand into the fabric from the other side. I ripped it open so fast I nearly slipped. Empty, of course. But the curtain, it was wet, high up where no water should have reached, shaped like a palm. After that, I stopped using the shower at night. Started taking quick ones during the day, curtain open, as if somehow daylight could protect me. Didn't matter. That feeling never left. Not during the day, not even with friends over. It was like the thing, whatever it was, wanted me to feel it, to know it was there. I started recording. Phone propped on the sink, camera pointed at the shower. I watched the playback one night. Hours of nothing until, right at the end, the curtain twitched. Not from the steam, not from my movement. I had been completely still. It was deliberate. A small, sudden pull inward, like someone had gently tugged on the fabric. I didn't sleep that night. Then last week, things escalated. I was brushing my teeth. It was late, nearly 2 a.m. And I hadn't showered that day, but the bathroom still felt damp. The curtain was drawn, but I hadn't touched it. Something dripped inside the tub. A single sound, then again, then faster. I turned, heart thudding. The dripping turned into a splash, just one, like someone had stepped into the water. I didn't move, I didn't speak, I just stared. And then, something pressed against the curtain. From the inside, a shape, human-shaped. Head, shoulders, arm slightly too tall, too narrow. Not moving, not breathing. Just there, between the curtain and the tub. I couldn't scream. Couldn't even blink. After what felt like minutes, I reached out. My hand shook so badly I thought I'd drop the toothbrush. I grabbed the curtain. 1, 2, 3, I yanked it open. Empty. Bone dry. No water in the tub. No footprints. Just the sound of the toothbrush still buzzing in my hand. I haven't used that bathroom since. Started showering at the gym. I even spent a few nights at my sister's place. But I still dream of it. The hand on my back. The breath on my neck. And tonight, when I got home from work, the bathroom light was on. I know I turned it off. And there was a wet footprint on the tile, just one leading out from the tub. But the worst part, the curtain was open. It's never been open on its own before. My shift was almost over when a man in a soaking wetsuit came in, bought nothing, and whispered that I shouldn't go home tonight if I wanted to live. He didn't wait for a response. He just turned and walked out into the dark, leaving puddles where he stood. It was 3:37 a.m., graveyard shift at a rundown gas station just off I-71. I was behind the counter, half watching a silent infomercial, counting the minutes until 4 a.m. when I could clock out and drive home. The rain had been coming down hard since midnight, slapping against the roof in steady sheets. The kind of night no one wanted to be out in, especially not out here, where the woods creep too close to the road and cell signal disappears for hours. That's why I was surprised when the front door slid open with a ding. The man who walked in didn't look like he belonged anywhere near a place like this. He was tall, maybe late 40s. Wearing a dark suit that clung to him like a second skin, completely soaked. His shoes squelched against the tile floor with every step. He wasn't carrying an umbrella, no car lights in the lot, nothing but the sound of dripping water. I greeted him like I always do. "Hey man, need help finding anything?" He didn't answer, just looked at me with wide and focused eyes, like he was watching something behind me, or maybe remembering something he didn't want to. Then he stepped forward, leaned over the counter, and whispered, "Don't go home tonight if you want to live." I froze. What? But he'd already turned, leaving a trail of wet footprints toward the door. I called after him, "Hey, what the hell does that mean?" But he didn't turn back. He vanished into the storm. For a second, I thought it was a prank. We get weirdos sometimes. Meth heads, drifters, people trying to freak out the night shift kid for laughs. But something about the way he said it, not threatening, not even scared, just certain. Like he knew something I didn't. I waited a few minutes, watching the cameras, expecting him to reappear, but he never came back. Eventually, I grabbed the mop, cleaned up his trail, and checked the time: 3:49 a.m. 11 minutes until I could leave. That's when the power went out. All at once, the lights, the humming coolers, the TV, everything cut. The station was plunged into black except for the red emergency light above the exit. I stood completely still. Rain hammered the roof. Wine pressed against the windows like it wanted to get in. Then, from the back room where the staff break areas, I heard a soft click, like the sound of someone pressing down a door handle. I wasn't supposed to be alone back there. We locked that room during my solo shifts. The only key was in my pocket. Another click. Then, the slow creak of the door opening. I reached under the counter for the flashlight we keep taped there, clicked it on and pointed it toward the hallway. The beam barely cut the darkness, but I saw something move. Not walk, move. Like it crawled across the floor just out of the light. Then, a silence. I stepped around the counter, keeping the flashlight steady, trying to convince myself it was an animal. A raccoon, maybe a cat that got in through the roof, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. As I edged closer to the hallway, my flashlight flickered. When it came back, I saw the back room door swinging slowly, open wide. On the floor, water, a perfect trail of soaking footprints, leading out of the break room, heading toward the exit. I followed them slowly, heart pounding, my breath fogged in the freezing air. The footprints stopped at the front door, but no one had come in. No one had left. The door hadn't dinged again. That's when I remembered the cameras. I ran back behind the counter and pulled up the feed. The last 10 minutes showed static, like something had erased them. Except for one frame. A single frozen image at 3:42 a.m. The man in the suit, standing behind the counter. My eyes were closed. I looked like I was asleep, standing up. And his hand, his soaking wet hand, was pressed against the back of my neck. I didn't go home that night. I still haven't. Because last week, I checked the camera again. Every night at 3:42 a.m., whether I'm working or not, the feed shows the same man, standing at the register, waiting. I came out here to be alone, just me, the hush of the woods, and the crunch of leaves under my boots. But by the second day, I realized every time I stopped walking, something else did too. I'd planned the hike for weeks, a solo loop through miles of old-growth forest where cell signals die and the world feels untouched. I told myself I needed the solitude, a break from traffic, screens, and small talk. Out here, I could listen to my own breathing, hear the wind carry through the canopy like an ancient whisper. It started small. The first night at camp, I woke up to the sound of footsteps crunching somewhere close. Heavy, deliberate. I lay still in my sleeping bag, heart hammering, breath caught in my throat. Just a deer, I told myself. Or a bear sniffing for my packed food. But the steps circled my tent twice slow, dragging, then stopped dead right behind my head. I didn't move. Didn't dare unzip the flap. After what felt like an hour, The footsteps faded, swallowed by the chorus of night insects and distant owls. I drifted off when the gray light of dawn bled through the tent walls. The next morning, I laughed it off. Told myself it was my imagination twisting branches snapping under settling snow, or maybe the echo of my own heartbeat pounding so loud it had become footsteps in the dark. But when I broke camp and got back on the trail, I saw the prints. They weren't mine. Too wide, the toes splayed oddly, like whoever made them walk barefoot on cold, rough ground. And they were fresh pressed deep in the soft dirt alongside my boot prints from the day before. They trailed the same path as mine for a while, then veered off into the brush. I stood there for too long staring, trying to figure out if maybe some local wandered through barefoot in the middle of the night. It made no sense. There were no campsites nearby, no other hikers, just me. Or so I thought. I pressed on. The trees closed around the narrow path. Birdsong faded until all I could hear was the wind and my boots in the loamy soil. But every so often when I stopped to drink or catch my breath, I'd hear it. The faint crack of a twig. The brush of something moving just out of sight. That night I built my fire higher than I normally would. Sparks danced up into the black sky like fireflies. I sat with my back to a white oak, the heat warming my boots while the dark pressed in behind me. The forest didn't feel empty anymore. It felt crowded, like the trees were leaning in, listening. When sleep finally took me, it was shallow. I dreamed of someone or something walking circles around my camp. Slow, careful, as if it didn't want to wake me but couldn't help getting closer. I woke to silence so thick it roared in my ears. No crickets, no wind, just the dying glow of my fire and the sharp smell of ash. I sat up and froze. Across the clearing, right at the edge of the light, were prints. Dozens of them, pressed into the soft moss. Coming closer, then stopping, turning away again. Each one pointed straight at me like a map I didn't want to read. At dawn, I packed up without breakfast. I left the trail and cut through brush, thorns tearing at my sleeves. I thought if I moved faster than whatever was out there, I could lose it. But every stop, every time I leaned against a tree to breathe, I'd hear the echo. A footstep when I stepped. A hush when I held my breath. By midday, I was back on the trail, but it looked wrong somehow. The sun felt dimmer under the canopy, the shadows longer. I kept checking behind me. I never saw anything, just flickers of movement, like shapes melting into the green when I looked too long. And then I found the clearing. My first campsite. My fire pit, cold but still circled by fresh, wide footprints. I should have been miles away by now. But the forest hadn't let me go. It's dark again. I'm back where I started, wrapped in my tent, listening to something just outside slowly dragging its feet around my shelter, each pass closer than the last. If you find this, know one thing, you're never really alone in the woods. Not if they don't want you to be. I heard my daughter giggling at 2 a.m. when I looked at the baby monitor. There was a man crouched at the edge of her crib. He wasn't moving, just staring, his face inches from hers, like he was waiting for something. My wife and I moved into the house last fall, quiet suburb, corner lot, big yard. The kind of place you imagine raising a family in. Our daughter, Emily, was barely 9 months old then. Sweet, curious, barely walking but already babbling like she had secrets to tell. The nursery was upstairs, just down the hall from our room. We painted the walls a soft yellow, filled it with plush toys and storybooks. We installed a baby monitor, one of those night vision ones with audio and motion detection. It gave me peace of mind. I liked checking in before I fell asleep, just seeing her little chest rising and falling. That night, I woke up to the sound of her laughter. Not a cry, a giggle. 2:03 a.m. My wife didn't stir, so I reached over and checked the monitor on my nightstand. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. The image was bathed in the monitor's eerie green glow. Emily was sitting up in her crib, giggling, her tiny hands waving in the air like she was playing peekaboo. But it wasn't her face that chilled me. It was his. There was a man. crouched low beside the crib, his face turned just slightly toward the camera, pale, expressionless, his eyes locked on her. I froze. My first instinct was to yell, to grab something, anything, and run in there. But something about the image made me pause. The man wasn't moving. He wasn't reaching for her or speaking. Just watching, as still as a statue. Then the monitor glitched static. For half a second. When the image returned, the crib was empty. No Emily. No man. Just the soft creak of the mobile above the crib slowly spinning. I leapt out of bed, threw the door open, rushed down the hall so fast I nearly slipped. The nursery door was closed. I pushed it open, heart pounding, and flicked on the light. Emily was asleep, tucked neatly under her blanket. One hand curled against her cheek. Peaceful. No sign of anyone else. The window was locked. Closet empty. I checked every corner, under the crib, behind the curtains, nothing. I stood there for a long time, just watching her sleep. I convinced myself it was a glitch, a nightmare maybe, something I dreamed and confused with reality. But I left the light on and barely slept a minute the rest of the night. The next morning, I reviewed the footage on the baby monitor app. It records when it detects motion. At 2:01 a.m., there's a short clip of 15 seconds. But the screen is black. Just audio. Emily giggling. And a low, raspy voice whispering something I couldn't quite make out. Almost like humming. Or words said backwards. I tried showing it to my wife. But when I opened the app again, the clip was gone. She told me I was stressed, sleep deprived. She wasn't wrong, I was running on fumes. But something about that night didn't sit right. So, I moved the monitor. Set up a second one across the room. A wider angle. A few nights passed. Nothing happened. Then, at 1:47 a.m. on a Thursday, I got the alert. Motion detected, nursery cam 2. I opened the feed. The room was dark, silent. Emily was asleep, but the mobile above her was spinning fast like someone had twisted it hard and let go. It cast strange shadows along the ceiling, and then the corner of the room darkened. I don't mean the light changed. I mean it looked like something was standing there. Darker than the rest of the shadows, a figure, motionless. As I stared, the shape tilted its head just slightly, and naturally like it knew I was watching. I ran upstairs. Again, the room was empty. My daughter still asleep. But the air was freezing. Not just cool, icy. I could see my breath as I stood in the doorway. We stayed at my parents' that night. And the next. Eventually, we came home. I replaced the monitors, updated the firmware, told myself it was all a series of coincidences, just stress and sleep deprivation playing tricks on me. But last week, Emily started talking more, real words. Mostly mama and ball. Then, during breakfast, she pointed down the hall and said, "He's in my room again." I froze. "Sweetheart," she looked up at me and smiled, "the man who sings." The first knock came at 2:03 a.m. soft, hesitant, like someone was afraid to wake me. But when I checked the peephole, the porch was empty, and the only sound was the whisper of rain against the windows. I told myself it was the wind. Or maybe a branch tapping the siding. Still, my skin prickled as I crept back to bed, listening for another sound that never came. The next night, it happened again. Knock, 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 louder this time, deliberate. I froze mid-step in my hallway, my breath shallow. The living room was dark. The only light a pale blue glow from the microwave clock. I forced myself to move, pressing my eye to the peephole. Nothing, then a wet, dragging sound, like boots on concrete. I flicked on the porch light. The wooden deck was slick with rain, and there, just beyond the welcome mat, were footprints, deep, muddy impressions leading up to my door but none leading away. My stomach dropped. Someone had been standing there, watching, waiting. I called the police. But they found nothing. No fingerprints, no disturbances. Just those damn footprints, which I scrubbed away with shaking hands. The knocking didn't stop. It followed me not just at home, but at work. A quiet rap on the bathroom stall when I was alone. A muffled thud against my car window in the empty parking garage. Each time, I turned heart slamming, only to find nothing but a faint smear of dirt where no one could have been. Then came the whispers. Late one night, as I lay in bed, I heard it a low, rasping voice just outside my window. "Let me in." I bolted upright. The curtains were shut, but through the thin fabric, I could have sworn I saw the shadow of a figure, its head tilted naturally to the side. I didn't sleep after that. By the fifth night, I was desperate. I set up my phone to record the hallway pointed at the door. If something or someone knocked again, I'd have proof. At exactly 2:03 a.m., the knocking started. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Just watched my phone screen as the camera captured every shuddering thud against the door. Then, silence. The handle turned, slowly, deliberately. The door creaked open, but on the screen, no one was there. Only the footprints, wet, muddy, forming one by one on the hardwood floor, as if something invisible was stepping inside. The video cut to static. I never heard the knocking again, but sometimes. At 2:03 a.m., I wake to the sound of my own front door creaking open and the faint, wet sound of footsteps padding down the hall.
I am the only child of two parents, and we live in Texas. For identity reasons, I will name them Franklin and Samantha, and I will call myself Walter. Last week it was my 18th birthday. It was on a weekend when I didn't have college. I woke up that morning and made myself some coffee and breakfast. I didn't worry about buying or baking a birthday cake, as I was sure my roommates and friends would throw me a surprise birthday party. I decided to check my phone and see if anyone sent me anything like a birthday wish. When I checked, I noticed that my parents sent me birthday wishes and one other thing. My mom sent me 3 files through the iMessage group chat that me and my parents had. Those files were videotapes of me and my parents. They wanted to remind me of the old memories we made, as I am now officially an adult. Below the files were the words, "Congratulations." I clicked on the first videotape, and it showed my 3rd birthday party. The party was being thrown at my house with childhood friends and my entire family. The video ended with me blowing out the birthday candles. Next, I clicked on the 2nd videotape. This one showed me riding a bicycle at the age of 9 for the first time. It also showed me being so happy riding that bike, I would ride that bike to school and back every day. Then I clicked on the 3rd and last videotape. The video started showing a man, a woman, and their child. They were having a barbecue in their garden and singing a song happily. The person behind the camera then kept pacing behind the fence, and what it looked like in frame is that the camera person was crouching down, most likely trying not to be seen. 5 minutes in the video had now passed, and nothing had changed, until I heard a woman behind the camera talking to whoever was behind the camera. The velocity of her voice kept increasing as it sounded like she was approaching the camera person. The woman asked, "Have you got them, Frank?" "Oh yeah, I have, honey," said Frank. I stopped the video. I had an awful feeling that I knew these voices. Is it true that it was really my parents? I hoped I was wrong, and I resumed the video. Frank then turned the camera to what I would think was his wife. And more importantly, it was my mom, Samantha. My suspicions were true. I couldn't believe that it was my parents. She looked to be about 15 to 20 years younger in the video. "Are you ready?" my mom asked, while she had a very sinister and devilish smile on her face. "Of course I am," said Dad. They then both walked around the fence and to where the garden was. As they got closer to the back, my mom started to pull something from her pocket. It was shiny, but I couldn't make it out. They then crept to where the man and woman were. The woman then suddenly turned her head around to the back, which faced where my parents were. Before the woman could do anything else, she just collapsed to the ground. She just dropped dead like a doll. The father then quickly turned his head around. His face was still in normal color, but half a second later, it turned pale and full of terror that I can't describe. And then he ran away from the home property and out of sight. I was holding my breath, and my hands were covering my mouth as I was still watching. My dad then took the baby from the unconscious, or should I say dead, mother's hands. The baby started crying as it was calling for its mom. My mom then put a tissue in the baby's mouth and told it to shut up. My parents then left this property and went inside a house, to which I think was where they lived before our current house. My mom then approached my dad and said, "Let's prepare the papers." She continued to speak, and then what she said next shook me deeply to my core. What she said was, "I think we should name him Walter. I like that name, and I'm sure he will be great," my dad said, and then the video abruptly ends. I then downloaded the video to my files. After doing that, I stayed frozen for the next 10 minutes. I tried to comprehend what just happened. I opened my phone again to the group chat with my parents, and I now saw that the third video file was gone. My mom then sent a text saying, "Did you see the third video?" I lied and said, "No, I didn't." My mom then responded to me with, "Okay, because I sent that one by accident." I then just put a thumbs up emoji as my reply, and that was the end of that conversation. It is now April, and I'm about to finish my first year of college in a few weeks. After I finish, I plan on staying somewhere across the country, far away from my home. And when I am at this place, which is to be determined, I am going to anonymously report my parents to the authorities and hopefully have them locked up in prison for a long time for kidnapping, abduction, false imprisonment, and possibly murder. My whole life turned out to be a lie, and I want to kill myself over it, but I will stay strong, because when my parents are out of my life and locked away, I want to tell my story to the world. But for now, I will stay anonymous, and will keep you guys updated if anything else changes.